We've had more people married that ducked counseling and had failed marriages than the people that went through counseling and stayed married. The ones that we could almost look back and say, okay, they came to us one time, asked us for counseling, never came to the counseling, went and got married without counseling, and a year later they were divorced. But we can also see people that came for counseling, sat down and got counseling, and went through fires, went through troubles, went through trials and tribulations, and yet, because they went through counseling, are still standing and still standing together as a couple. So there's something to counseling. In the book of Proverbs, there's a statement that says, in the multitude of counselors, there is safety. That's a war proverb with the understanding that when you are in war, when you are in battle, it is the wisest military leaders, the wisest presidents surround themselves with wise counselors. The reason that we were so successful in Desert Storm was because the president at the time had surrounded himself with wise generals. It was General Colin Powell and General, what's his name, Schwarzkopf, and they put together a plan. They weren't in a hurry. They assembled their troops. I mean, if you remember back, they set that thing up. It was like by the time we actually launched Desert Storm, because I think we spent like 3 or 6 months in Desert something else. Desert Shield. We just, okay, we're going to get set up. And that only happened because the president at the time allowed his military advisors to give him sound counsel. Where if we look back at the Vietnam War, we find that the military minds were not allowed to make the right decisions. So that the decisions became political. They refused to listen to war counseling, and we ended up losing 58,000 unnecessary lives on our side and countless hundreds of thousands of Vietnamese civilians and North Vietnamese and Viet Cong, and it just was a tragic war, but it had something to do with the lack of counseling. So tonight in chapter 10, we're going to see, but I want us to go first. First, let's go to Psalm 1. Psalm 1. It's one of my favorite psalms. It's one that I read often. Sometimes when you're going through as a man or woman of God and things aren't lining up the way you think they should, sometimes if you come back here, it lets you know that all is well. If you're there, say amen. Say, blessed is the man that walketh not in the counsel of the ungodly, nor standeth in the way of sinners, nor sitteth in the seat of the scornful. Blessed is the man that walks not in the counsel of the ungodly, but his delight is in the law of the Lord. That's where our first counsel should come from. And in his law doth he meditate day and night. And he shall be like a tree planted by the rivers of water, that bringeth forth his fruit in his season. His leaf also shall not wither, and whatsoever he doeth shall prosper. Amen. Blessed is the man that walketh not in the counsel of the ungodly. Now I want us to jump ahead to one of David's descendants. I believe I want to go to, let's go to 2 Chronicles. Let me see, we might go to 1 Kings. Let me see which one I like. The same, but sometimes it reads a little better. Yes, let's go to 1 Kings chapter 12. 1 Kings chapter 12. We're going to see what happens to one of David's descendants when he refused sound counsel. 1 Kings chapter 12. And Rehoboam went to Shechem, for all Israel were come to Shechem to make him king. And it came to pass when Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, was yet in Egypt, heard it, for he was fled from the presence of King Solomon, and Jeroboam dwelt in Egypt. And they sent and called him, and Jeroboam and all the congregation of Israel came and spake unto Rehoboam, saying, Thy father made our yoke grievous. Now therefore make thou the grievous service of thy father and his heavy yoke which he put upon us lighter, and we will serve thee. And he said unto them, Depart yet for 3 days, then come again to me. And the people departed. And King Rehoboam consulted with the old men that stood before Solomon his father while he yet lived, and said, How do you advise that I answer this people? And they spake unto him, saying, If thou wilt be a servant unto this people this day, and wilt serve them, and answer them, and speak good words to them, then they will be thy servants forever. In other words, if you show a little patience and a little humility, you will win them over forever. But he forsook the counsel of the old men, which he had given him, and consulted with young men that were grown up with him and which stood before him. And he said unto them, What counsel give you me that we may answer this people, who have spoken to me, saying, Make the yoke which my father did put upon us lighter? And the young men that were grown up with him spake unto him, saying, Thus shalt thou speak unto this people that spake unto thee, saying, Thy father made our yoke heavy, but thou make it lighter unto us. Thus shalt thou say unto them, My little finger shall be thicker than my father's loins. And whereas my father did lade you with a heavy yoke, I will add to your yoke. My father have chastised you with whips, but I will chastise you with scorpions. So Jeroboam and all the people came to Rehoboam on the 3rd day that the king appointed, saying, Come again the 3rd day. And the king answered the people roughly, and forsook the old men's counsel that they gave him. Forsook the old men's counsel, because the old men's counsel wasn't cool. That's why, like I say, I wanted to really minister this to young men and women, that sometimes the counsel that you get from your mother or your father or from a teacher or from a coach it's not the cool, it don't sound cool. The folk you grow up with, the folk that you're around, the kids that are your age are always going to give you something to pump up your flesh, to pump up your head. Man, you ain't got to take that. Shoot. You know, you in sports, you ain't got to take that. You've been starting for 3 years. What the coach going to sit you down for? And then you have athletes that will quit a team that had the potential to get a scholarship, but they quit the team because they thought the coach was picking on them when the coach was trying to pull some out of their character. To see if you can sit down as a star in high school, then you'll be elevated in college. But I'm just saying, some athletes and they quit, mad at the coach. I ain't got to put up with that, and end up not going to college, end up on the street, not receiving counsel. how many counselors you go to the school counselor, and the school counselor gives you good counsel. In order for you to do this, you need to prepare now, get your grades ready now, so when it's time to choose a college, you don't have to beg. One of the best stories I saw recently was on Yahoo News. There was a young African-American young man, high school student, that got accepted at all 8 Ivy League universities. It gave me chill bumps when I read it. He got Harvard, Yale, Brown, Cornell, Penn. I don't even know them all, but all 8 Ivy League schools. Do you know how hard it is to get into one Ivy League school? And he got accepted. He got an acceptance letter from all 8. He can choose. Now, I bet if we go back in this young man's history that somebody gave him counsel and he received it. Somebody even, and I can't just deal with young, sometimes at our age, when we were considering how to purchase this property, we didn't know how to purchase a property. I'd never purchased a property for a ministry. Apostle had never purchased a property for a ministry. We rented properties, but we'd never purchased one. So what did we do? We went to one of the biggest, what did we do, Apostle? We went over there to one of the biggest churches in the city that had just built a multi-million-dollar facility, and we sat down and said, we don't know what to do. Can you tell us what to do? You have to be able to, and he told us exactly what to do. You need to go do this first. And it's a lot of times when they tell you what to do, it's not the big exciting thing. It's the small, what seems to be insignificant thing. In other words, like these old men told this king, hey, show the people kindness. Get them on your side. If you can get them on your side, they'll stay on your side. But the young men say, hey, you the king. Man, they ain't nobody tell you, you the king, put the hammer down. And he ended up losing. I'm not going to go because we'll eventually get to that. But he lost the kingdom. So let's go and look at where we're supposed to be in 2 Samuel chapter 10. See, sometimes the failure to heed sound counsel can put you in a situation where you lose everything. Now, this happened to be, wasn't an enemy of David, but it was another country, but it was one of the kings that had shown David kindness during the time he was running from Saul. So let's read it. It says, it came to pass after the year, I'm looking at the wrong, I'm in the wrong. It said, it came to pass after this that the king of the children of Ammon died, and Hanun, his son, reigned in his stead. Then said David, I will show kindness unto Hanun, the son of Nahash, as his father showed kindness unto me. And David sent to comfort him by the hand of his servants for his father. And David's servants came into the land of the children of Ammon. And the princes, or the young men of Ammon, said unto Hanun their lord, thinkest thou that David doth honor thy father, and that he have sent comforters unto thee? Has not David rather sent his servants to thee to spy, to search the city and spy it out and to overthrow it? Wherefore Hanun took David's servants and shaved off half their beards, cut their garments off in the middle, even to their buttocks, and sent them away. He shaved halfway, so they had only half a beard, and cut their garments like they left in, they used to wear long, they cut them like a miniskirt, so that they even part of their back parts was showing. that was to truly humiliate them. When they told it unto David, he sent to meet them, because the men were greatly ashamed. And the king said, tarry at Jericho until your beards be grown, and then return. And when the children of Ammon saw that they stank before David. I like that. Is that what your Bible says? Another way to say it is, when the children of Ammon saw that they had made themselves repulsive to David, the children of Ammon sent and hired the Syrians of Beth-Rahab and the Syrians of Zobah, 20,000 footmen, and of King Maacah 1,000 men, and Ishaph 12,000 men. So they had to rally up and get an army together, because they have realized, they have come to their senses and realized that they have really brought shame to Israel, to King David. David was truly trying to show him kindness, but instead of him going to older men in his father's government and saying, because he must not have known the kindness that this man's father showed David. I would go back to it, but there were many times when David hid out. If you remember, y'all remember the story. The first time David encountered this king, remember, he acted like he was crazy. Had spittle running down his beard. God said, he can't be no threat because he's crazy. Well, that's this man's father that then took David in and treated him well. Then when David came back as a mighty man later, before, while Saul was still king, he allowed him to stay in that area of country. So if this young king had went to his father's advisors and said, hey, do you think David is out to get us? Then his father, he said, no, your father took care of him and looked out for him. I'm pretty sure that he means you well and not evil. See, sometimes we have to be willing to go and ask for counsel. When you're facing a situation, sometimes, find out somebody, experience is the best teacher. But do you realize that you don't have to experience everything to reap the rewards of the teaching that it gives? Am I right about it? Do you really have to fall down, wreck your car, to realize that driving drunk is not a smart thing to do? You can turn on the news and see a wrecked vehicle and say, and find out that was the cause of a drunk drive. His experience should be enough to teach you. So you don't have to experience everything to learn from other people's experience. Amen? And he could have learned from the older men's experience. We sometimes go to folks that don't have no more experience than we do, looking for them to give us counsel. You know what kind of counsel they're going to give us? Bad. You ain't been through nothing. We were talking one time about a young minister. And I'm not going to go into no details enough for anybody to know who I'm talking about. But one of the things I had said to Apostle was, he ain't been through nothing. And because he haven't been through nothing, he doesn't understand the path he's going down and the things he's calling attention to himself, but he has not experienced anything yet. It's one thing to call yourself a pastor when you under somebody else and somebody else is paying the rent and is responsible for the people. I'm pastor so-and-so. But when the responsibility goes on your shoulders, everything changes. Now you're responsible. And until you have reaped some personal responsibility, you can't really gain from the experience that teaches you. Is it making sense what I'm saying? So here's this young man. He went to the young men. They gave him bad counsel. He realizes now that, I done messed up, but I'm going to hire some people to help protect me, because I'm sure David's coming after me now. So the children of Ammon came out and put the battle in array at the entering of the gate. And the Syrians of Zobah and of Rehob and Ishtab and Makkah were by themselves in the field. So you got the children of Ammon have lined up on one side in array. You got the rest of these group of Syrians that they have hired lined up on the other. I want y'all to picture this. When Joab saw that the front of the battle was against him, before and behind, he chose all the choice men of Israel and put them in array against the Syrians. And the rest of the people he delivered into the hand of Abishai, his brother, that he might put them in array against the children of Ammon. So here's Joab. He said, okay, I'm going to get my choice men. We're going to line up against these Syrians and deal with them. I'm going to take the better. I'm going to take special forces and armored divisions, and I'm going to take another division. I'm going to put my brother in charge of these, and he'll deal with the Ammonites. And he said, if the Syrians be too strong for me, then you come help me. And if the children of Ammon be too strong for you, I will come and help you. So now they have a plan, but they understand they're outnumbered and pretty much outmaneuvered, but they have figured out a plan. Let's see which way the battle goes, and we'll deal with it as it goes. But he said, be of good courage, and let us play the men for our people. Let us be the man. Let us put ourselves in array. Let's be the man for our people and for the cities of our God, and the Lord do which seemeth him good. And Joab drew nigh, and the people that were with him unto the battle against the Syrians, and they fled before him. If you don't understand what fled means, is after he started battling, they decided that they had already had enough, and they began what would be called a furious retreat. They began to flee before Joab and his crew. Now let's see what happened to the Ammonites. And when the children of Ammon saw the Syrians were retreating or fleeing, they fled, retreated. And you imagine, this is a furious retreat. This is run for your life. They fled also before Abishai and entered into the city. So Joab returned from the children of Ammon and came to Jerusalem. And when the Syrians saw that they were smitten before Israel, they gathered themselves together. Let's get it together now. And Ezer sent and brought out the Syrians that were beyond the river, and they came to Helam, and Shobach, the captain of the host, to Hadrazar, and went before them. And when it was told David, he gathered all Israel together, and passed over Jordan, and came to Helam, and the Syrians set themselves in array against David and fought with him. And the Syrians fled, they retreated, on the retreat again. The Syrians should have stayed home. They fled before Israel, and David slew the men of 700 chariots of the Syrians, 40,000 horsemen, and smote Shobach, the captain of their host, who died there. I guess lesson number 2 in this is don't jump in somebody else's fight. They really didn't have no dog in this fight. They were hired. The fight was really between Ammon, who David was trying to show kindness to, and David and his people. But they went and hired the Syrians, and now the Syrians have put themselves, sometimes they mind your own business. Has anybody ever gotten a fight and you got into it and say, what in the world, I ain't even, what am I doing? How I get in the middle of this? I know all of us have experienced that. You try, I don't know why y'all keep looking toward the back. Everybody turn around and look at you. when I said it, wait a minute, when I said it, I said, has anybody ever, it's about 5 heads there like this. Real quiet, look, you were, you had to see it. I wish you got it on camera. It was funny. They look around, I know somebody. But she's a winner though. But I believe the Syrians hate the fact that they ever got in this fight. It wasn't their fight. And to lose that many men for trying to fight for somebody who wouldn't accept good counsel. You know, you didn't, think about it in high school. That's why I'm talking to the youth here to understand, don't let somebody get you caught up in something that's not going to benefit you because you're trying to show off. You trying to, I'm bad. How many young people, because they're not prepared for the consequences, will go running with the crowd to try to prove their manhood? So here the Syrians, he says, smoke Shabak, their captain of the host, and who died there. And when all the kings that were servant to Hadarezer saw that they were smitten before Israel, they made peace. Now, you have to understand what I love about peace back then is you had to pay for peace. Peace wasn't free. Y'all understand? They had to pay. So it says, so they made peace with Israel and served them. So the Syrians feared to help the children of Ammon anymore. So I think the moral of the couple, like I said, a couple things that I gleaned out of this chapter, that as I was studying for it, it just kept that young man, first of all, I don't think he sought sound counsel. I think he should have went to his father's advisors, at least got their opinion. And then I think the second thing was he should have weighed more carefully his young advisors' counsel. Like, are you, we need to dig a little deeper into this and not just humiliate these servants that David has sent here. And because he refused to accept sound, mature counsel and responded to young, unsure counsel, I believe that they ended up being, and I think the term for an individual that ends up in this situation for failure to accept and receive good counsel, we've formerly called it shipwreck. You end up shipwrecked. A lot of times, if you look back at your life when you ended up in a shipwreck situation, you can kind of look back and see, and as you go back through the genesis of how it happened, you sometimes can look back, Mama told me not to go with him. My father told me to check my oil and make sure I had air in my tires before I try to drive to another state. You shipwrecked, now you stuck somewhere. Called, I think I'm on 29. Come get me. Parents, how many times have you, after you've given your children good counsel, look, don't do it. Look, pay your bills. Look, bring me your electric bill money and I'll pay it for you. 2 weeks, 3 weeks later, Daddy, see what had happened was, remember when you had told me to, let's see, the lights is off. We ain't got no lights. Huh? I know, but I could deal with it because I'm a man, but you know the baby. Been there, done that. And you can go back and see, not only in our own lives, but in our children's lives. And when we was children, I know my mom and my daddy sometimes gave me good sound counsel, and I didn't listen. Stay in school, Daryl. You have a chance to get a full scholarship to Morehouse University. They didn't fly you to Atlanta from Chicago to meet Ralph David Abernathy for nothing. Shoot, tell you one thing, I'm going to get high. Oh, I'm talking about myself now. And still wondering today, like, what happened? How come I didn't end up graduating from the same school Martin Luther King went to when I had an opportunity? Because I refused to listen and accept and respond positively to sound counsel. And I think this story is an example of how bad it could be when you don't listen, and then when you try to rally your folk. You know, and then I'm going to wrap up and open it up. But the other thing that's funny about this story is, and all of us have experienced this, you didn't accept sound counsel, but you done pulled your buddies in your mess too. You know, come on, your daddy done said the car is not road worthy to go to Danville. But you get your buddies together because it's a party in Danville that we cannot miss. We got to be there. Somewhere around Hurt, Virginia. They must have named it that way for a reason. Y'all all standing outside the car wondering where the smoke is coming from. That's just an example, and it's all of us have experienced it. And like I say, I pray that this message would get to as many young people to know that take the time to listen and respond to sound, mature counsel. And I believe it will be a blessing to you. Apostle, would you like to add something from up here before it can go on YouTube? Okay. All right, you can cut it right there. Give God a hand clap.